When you hear the phrase "help is on the way," it sounds like a movie moment, right? But for the people on the ground in Iran, that promise is colliding with a brutal reality. Donald Trump is putting that message out there, but let us be real, this is not going to be a walk in the park. It is going to get ugly. As the security forces start their crackdown, the big question is whether that momentum from the streets can actually hold. You have to wonder, do the people even know what is happening? With the government pulling the plug on the internet, most Iranians might be completely in the dark about the strikes or the messages coming from the US. It is like they are taking a page right out of the China and Russia playbook for total digital control. But there is a twist. We are hearing about Starlink receivers being smuggled in to keep the information flowing through the crack. It is not as fast as it used to be, but that undercurrent of information is moving. It is a high-stakes game of cat and mouse where the prize is the truth itself. We are still in the early stages, but if that message truly lands, we could see those protests catch fire in a way the regime just cannot put out. If you think these strikes on Iran are just a quick one-off message, you need to buckle up, because the reality is much bigger. We are not looking at a campaign that lasts a few hours. According to reporting from Jennifer Griffin at Fox News and several top officials, this could go on for several days, or even weeks. We are seeing the largest military buildup in the Middle East since 2003, excluding ground forces. That is a massive amount of firepower. The strategy here seems to be following the old military rule. If you are going to do it right, and use overwhelming power. They have already started going after senior leadership targets, but the mission is far from over. Next on the list are the IARGC Navy and the rest of their specialized forces. Now, while all this heavy metal is moving, there is another battle happening on the ground, the battle for information. Iran is trying to clamp down on the internet, using the same playbook as China and Russia, but word of mouth is a powerful thing. Even if it is not as fast as it was back in late December or early January, that localized information is starting to spread like an undercurrent. It takes time for the momentum to build when the lights are out, but as people realize what is actually happening to the regime, that anger is going to gather steam. We had a little connection glitch with Mark Chandler, but he is back with us to break down why this long-term campaign is the only way the military thinks they can actually be successful. This is not just a strike, it is a total shift in the region. You might think the dust is settling after today's strike, but the truth is, we are only seeing the first few pages of a very long book. This isn't just about hitting a few buildings and going home. It's a methodical, sustained campaign that is just getting started. Right now, the military is focused on dismantling the IARGC Navy and their missile forces, the very same ones that tried to counterattack earlier this morning. The goal here is simple. They want to clear the path so our air forces have what they call freedom of maneuver. Basically, they are taking out the regime's eyes and teeth one by one so they can move in even deeper. Now, if you notice a sudden silence, do not be fooled for a second. We might see a brief pause, maybe for just 24 hours, but that is only because the intelligence teams are busy doing a battle damage assessment. They are literally checking their work and grading the hits before they go back in for more. Donald Trump's speech early this morning was not just political talk. It was a loud and clear notice to the Iranian people, and a final warning to the IARGC that this will continue until the job is done. Even though the Iranian government is insisting that the Ayatollah is safe and hidden away in some secret underground network in Tehran, or maybe even evacuated, you can bet our teams are already working to track that new location. This campaign could stretch on for days or even weeks because the target list is still huge. We are talking about inland military bases, security forces that oppress protesters, and of course, those nuclear weapons program targets that were not completely taken out last year. It is a high-stakes cycle of strike, pause, assess, and restrike. So, do not get too comfortable, because the next wave could be coming sooner than you think, and we might be right back here tomorrow morning watching it all happen again. You might be wondering why these latest strikes on Iran started just as the sun was coming up, especially since the US military is famous for owning the night. It all comes down to a high-stakes 24-hour cycle where negotiations basically hit a brick wall. The Iranians were doing what they always do, which is stalling and playing for time, but this time the clock finally ran out. The decision to strike in broad daylight was a calculated move driven by some very refined intelligence. We are talking about a specific window of opportunity where leadership targets were exactly where they needed to be. Maybe they were in the middle of a meeting or just felt safe because it was morning, but the intel said now is the time to strike for the best chance of success. Right now, we are seeing a methodical process. Strike, pause, and assess. There is a massive preset target list being worked through. While there might be a brief quiet period while intelligence teams check the damage. Do not expect that to last. Unless a miracle happens and Iran surrenders today, which we know is not going to happen, you should expect a major increase in strikes as soon as the sun goes down. Meanwhile, Oman's foreign minister is coming out saying he is dismayed, claiming that serious negotiations were undermined. But we have to be real here. Oman has historically acted more like an ally to Iran than a truly neutral mediator. Their talk about serious negotiations feels pretty disingenuous when you realize Iran has used these same stalling techniques with every Western power for years. Usually, the West just caves in and gives them whatever they want. But this time is different. President Trump made it clear exactly what he wanted, and when Iran kept coming back with more excuses and stalling, the choice was made to move forward. This is a sustained campaign, and the next few days are going to be critical as we see how much of their defense we can knock down before the next wave hits. Ever had that feeling where you know someone is lying to your face just to buy a few more minutes? That is the exact vibe coming off the Iranian regime right now. They have been running the same play for years. First, they flat out deny they even have a nuclear program. Then, they say they are finally ready to take some steps, but only if the talks happen next week. It is a never-ending cycle of delay tactics. Even the inspectors at the AIII, the nuclear watchdog, are coming out and saying they just cannot get access for inspection. It is a total stall. But while the regime plays games, look at what is actually happening on the ground. We are seeing footage of smoke rising over Tehran. But the real story is what we are seeing in the street. People are coming out in several different locations, and they are holding up photos of the exiled crown prince. Now, he might not have a perfect following, but he represents a heritage from before 1979. People are looking back at the time of the Shah as a more prosperous era with real freedom. When there is nobody else to turn to, he becomes the rallying cry. You even see them waving the old Iranian flag, not the one the regime uses. That is a massive statement. This momentum has been building since late December and January, and it is clear the people are done with the current radical group. They want their country back. This is not just a news story. It is a whole nation reaching its breaking point. Look at the streets of London right now. Thousands of people are gathering, waving flags and shouting for change, and that energy is exactly what needs to spark inside Iran next. We are seeing images of protesters taking to the streets for hours and days on end, and while it is happening globally, the real mission is getting that message to the Iranian civilian. You have to wonder, are we finally looking at the end of this regime? After 47 years of focusing on nothing but spreading terrorism and control across the Middle East, this government is finally at its absolute weakest point. Now, when I say they are weak militarily, do not get me wrong, they can still strike back, but their internal grip is slipping. The fact that students felt brave enough to come out just this week tells you everything you need to know. We could be standing on the very edge of a total collapse, but it is going to take a sustained campaign of pressure from the US and Israel to push them over. The goal is to convince these leaders that it is better to leave with their lives than to stay and go down with the ship. And here is a little inside tip. We already know they are moving money out of the country. For all their talk about religious fanaticism and nationalism, when things get real, it is all about self-preservation. They are packing their bags while the world watches. We are going to keep a close eye on how this plays out, because the next few days could change the map of the Middle East forever.